Today's reading will be from Genesis chapter 36 to 40. Before starting today's reading, let us pray to God that we might be far away from God right now. So let us ask Him to give us an opportunity where we can get closer to Him, pray to Him on a daily basis, or read the Bible on a daily basis, which will help us eventually to get back to Jesus, get back to God. Through prayer is where we can, reach out to Him in terms of needs or wants or during difficult situations. So let's take a moment of silence and pray to Him. Pray to Him that let Him help us get back to Him. Before going into today's reading, we have already started this live series of reading Bible every day. Our objective is to complete the Bible, to read it fully and understand and what is written in the scriptures, and to follow them in our daily lives. So this gives you all an opportunity and for me to take this daily live sessions where you can listen to me reading the Bible, and we'll complete it eventually. We'll try to complete Bible at least probably within a year maybe. So without any further ado, let us get into the reading. The descendants of Esau. These are the descendants of Esau, also called Edom. Esau married Canaanite woman, Ada, the daughter of Helon the Hittite, Oholibamah, the daughter of Hannah, son of Zibeon the Hivite, and Basemath, the daughter of Ismail, and sister of Nebaioth. Ada bore Eliphaz, Basemath bore Ruel, and Oholibamah bore Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. All these sons were born in Esau in the land of Canaan. Then Esau took his wives, his sons, and daughters, and all the people of his house, together with all his livestock and all the possessions he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went away from his brother Jacob to another land. He left because the land where he and Jacob were living was not able to support them. They had too much livestock and could not longer stay together. So Esau lived in the hill country of Edom. These are the descendants of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites. Esau's wife Ada bore him one son, Eliphaz, and Eliphaz had 5 sons, Teman, Homer, Zepho, Gatham, and Kenaz. And by another wife, Timnah, he had one more son, Amalek. Esau's wife, Basemath, bore him one son, Ruel, and Ruel had 4 sons, Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. Esau's wife, Oholibamath, the daughter of Hannah's son of Zibeon, bore him 3 sons, Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the tribes descended from Esau. Esau's first son, Eliphaz, was the ancestor of the following tribes: Teman, Homer, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatham, and Amalek. These were all descendants of Esau's wife, Ada. Esau's son, Reuel, was the ancestor of the following tribes: Nahath, Zerah, Sama, and Mizah. These were all descendants of Esau's wife, Basemath. The following tribes were descended from Esau by his wife, Oholibamah. The daughter of Anna, Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. All these tribes were descended from Esau, the descendants of Seir. The original inhabitants of the land of Edom were divided into tribes which traced their ancestry to the following descendants of Seir: Haroit, Latan, Shobal, Zibeon, Hannah, Dishon, Ezer, and Disha. Latan, Lotan was the ancestor of the clans of Hori and Eman. Lotan had a sister named Timnah. Shobal was ancestor of the clans of Halwan, Manahath, Hebal, Shepho, and Honam. Zibeon had two sons, Heha and Hana. This is the Hannah who found the hot springs in the wilderness when he was taking care of his father's donkeys. Hannah was the father of Dishon, who was the ancestor of the clans of Hemdan, Eshban, Yitran, and Cheran. Hannah also had a daughter named Oholibamah. Ezer was the ancestor of the clans of Bilan, Zaban, and Hekan. Dishan was the ancestor of all the clans of Uz and Haran. These are the Horite tribes in the land of Edom: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Hannah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. The kings of Edom. Before there were any kings in Israel, the following kings ruled over the land of Edom in succession: Bela, son of Beor from Dinabah; Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah; Usham from the region of Teman; Hadad, son of Bedad from Havith. He defeated the Midianites in a battle in the country of Moab. Samla from Mezrekah; Shaul from Rehoboth on the river; Baal Hanan, son of Hagbor; Hadad from Pau. His wife was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred and granddaughter of Mezahab. Esau was the ancestor of the following Edomite tribes: Timnah, Halwa, Jethet, Hilobama, Hela, Pinon, Kenas, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Hiram. The area where each of these tribes lived was known by the name of the tribe. Joseph and his brothers. Jacob continued to live in the land of Canaan where his father had lived. And this is the story of Jacob's family. Joseph, a young man of 17, took care of the sheep and goats with his brothers, the son of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's concubines. He brought bad reports to his father about what his brothers were doing. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his other sons because he had been born to him when he was old. He made a long robe with full sleeves for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than he loved them, they hated their brother so much that they would not speak to him in a friendly manner. One night, Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more. He said, "Listen to the dream I had. We were all in the field lying up, tying up sheaves of wheat when my sheaf got up and stood up straight. Ears formed a circle round mine and bowed down to it. Do you think you are going to be a king and rule over us?" His brothers asked. So they hated him even more because of his dreams and because of what he said about them. Then Joseph had another dream and said to his brothers, "I had another dream in which I saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me." He also told the dream to his father, and his father scolded him. "What kind of dream is that? Do you think that your mother, your brothers, and I are going to come and bow down to you?" Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept thinking about the whole matter. Joseph is sold and taken to Egypt. One day, when Joseph's brothers had gone to Shechem to take care of their father's flock, Jacob said to Joseph, I want you to go to Shechem, where your brothers are taking care of the flock. Joseph answered, I am ready. His father said, go and see if your brothers are safe, and if the flock is all right, then come back and tell me. So his father sent him on his way from the valley of Hebron. Joseph arrived at Shechem and was wandering about in the country when a man saw him and asked him, what are you looking for? I am looking for my brothers who are taking care of their flock. He answered, can you tell me where they are? The man said, they have already left. I heard them say that they were going to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted against him and decided to kill him. They said to one another, here comes the dreamer. Come on now, let's kill him and throw his body into one of the dry wells. We can say that a wild animal killed him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams. Reuben heard them and tried to save Joseph. Let's not kill him, he said. Joseph, throw into this well in the wilderness. Just throw him into the well in the wilderness, but don't hurt him. He said this, planning to save him from them and send him back to his father. When Joseph came up to his brothers, they ripped off his long robe with full sleeves. Then they took him and threw him into the well, which was dry. While they were eating, they suddenly saw a group of Ishmaelites traveling from Gilead to Egypt. Their camels were loaded with spices and raisins. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother and covering up his murder? Let's sell him to these Ishmaelites, and then we won't have to hurt him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed, and when some Midianite trader came by, the brothers pulled Joseph out of the well and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben came back to the well and found that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes in sorrow. He returned to his brothers and said, the boy is not there. What am I going to do? Then they killed a goat and dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. They took the robe to their father and said, we found this. Does it belong to your son? He recognized it and said, yes, it is his. Some wild animal has killed him. My son Joseph has been torn to pieces. Jacob tore his clothes in sorrow and put on sackcloth. He mourned for his son a long time. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, I will go down to the world of the dead, still mourning for my son. So he continued to mourn for his son Joseph. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the Midianites had sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of the king's officers who was the captain of the palace guard. Judah and Tamar. About that time, Judah left his brothers, and went to stay with a man named Hira, who was from the town of Adullam. There, Judah met a Canaanite girl whose father was named Shua. He married her, and she bore him a son, whom he named Er. She became pregnant again and bore another son, and named him Onan. Again, she had a son, named him Selah. Judah was at Achzib when the boy was born. For the first son, Judah got a wife whose name was Tamar. Er's conduct was evil, and it displeased the Lord, so the Lord killed him. Then Judah said to Er's brother Onan, go and sleep with your brother's widow. Fulfill your obligation to her as her husband's brother, so that your brother may have descendants. But Onan knew that the children would not belong to him, so whenever he had intercourse with his brother's widow, he let the semen spill on the ground, so that there would be no children for his brother. What he did displeased the Lord, and the Lord killed him also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, return to your father's house and remain a widow until my son Shelah grows up. He said this because he was afraid that Selah would be killed, as his brothers had been. So Tamar went back home. After some time, Judah's wife died. When he had finished the time of mourning, he and his friend Hira of Adullam went to Timnah, where his sheep were being sheared. Someone told Tamar that her father in law was going to Timnah to shear his sheep, so she changed from the widow's clothes and she had been wearing, covered her face with a veil, and sat down at the entrance to Heniam, a town on the road to Timnah. As she well knew, Judah's youngest son Shelah had now grown up, and yet she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought that she was a prostitute because she had her face covered. He went over to her at the side of the road and said, "All right, how much do you charge?" He did not know that she was his daughter in law. She said, "What will you give me?" He answered, "I will send you a young goat from my flock." She said, "All right, if you will give me something to keep as a pledge until you send the goat." "What shall I give you as a pledge?" he answered. She answered, "Your seal with its cord and the stick you are carrying." He gave them to her. Then they had intercourse, and she became pregnant. Tamar went home, took off her veil, and put her widow's clothes back on. Judah sent his friend Hira to take the goat and get back from the woman the articles he had pledged, but Hira could not find her. He has some men at Enam. Where is the prostitute who was here by the road? There has never been a prostitute here, they answered. He returned to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her here." The man of the place said that there had never been a prostitute there. Judah said, "Let her keep the things. We don't want people to laugh at us. I did try to pay her, but you couldn't find her." About 3 months later, someone said to Judah, "Your daughter in law Tamar has been acting like a whore, and now she is pregnant." Judah ordered, "Take her out and burn her to death." And she was being taken out. She sent word to her father in law, "I am pregnant by the man who owns these things. Look at them and see whose they are. This seal with its cord and this stick." Judah recognized them and said, "She is in the right. I have failed in my obligation to her. I should have given her to my son Shelah in marriage." And Judah never had intercourse with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, it was discovered that she was going to have twins. While she was in labor, one of them put out an arm. The midwife caught it, tied her red thread round it, and said, "This one was born first." But he pulled his arm back, and his brother was born first. Then the midwife said, "So this is how you break your way out." So he was named Perez. Then his brother was born with the red thread on his arm, and he was named Zerah. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now the Ishmaelites had taken Joseph to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, one of the king's officers who was the captain of the palace guard. The Lord was with Joseph and made him successful. He lived in the house of his Egyptian master, who saw that the Lord was with Joseph and had made him successful in everything he did. Potiphar was pleased with him and made him his personal servant, so he put him in charge of his house and everything he owned. From then on, because of Joseph, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian and everything that he had in his house and in his fields. Potiphar handed over everything he had to the care of Joseph and did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Joseph was well built and good looking, and after a while, his master's wife began to desire Joseph and asked him to go to bed with her. He refused and said to her, "Look, my master does not have to concern himself with anything in the house because I am here. He has put me in charge of everything he has. I have as much authority in the house as he has, and he has not kept back anything from me except you. How then could I do such an immoral thing and sin against God?" Although she asked Joseph day after day. He would not go to bed with her. But one day, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, none of the house servants was there. She caught him by his robe and said, "Come to bed with me." But he escaped and ran outside, leaving his robe in her hand. When she saw that he had left his robe and had run out of the house, she called to her house servants and said, "Look at this Hebrew that my husband brought to the house is insulting us. He came into my room and tried to rape me, but I screamed as loud as I could. When he heard me scream, he ran outside, leaving his robe beside me." She kept his robe with her until Joseph's master came home. Then she told him the same story. "That Hebrew slave that you brought here, came into my room and insulted me. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his robe beside me." Joseph's master was furious and had Joseph arrested and put in the prison where the king's prisoners were kept, and there he stayed. But the Lord was with Joseph and blessed him, so that the jailer was pleased with him. He put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and made him responsible for everything that was done in the prison. The jailer did not have to look after anything for which Joseph was responsible, because the Lord was with Joseph and made him succeed in everything he did. Joseph interprets the prisoner's dreams. Sometime later, the king of Egypt's wine steward and his chief baker offended the king. He was angry with these two officials and put them in prison in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same place where Joseph was being kept. They spent a long time in prison, and captain assigned Joseph as their servant. One night, there in prison, the wine steward and the chief baker each had a dream, and the dreams had different meanings. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were upset. He asked them, "Why do you look so worried today?" They answered, "Each of us had a dream, and there is no one here to explain what the dream means." "It is God who gives the ability to interpret dreams," Joseph said. "Tell me your dreams." So the wine steward said, "In my dream, there was a grapevine in front of me with three branches on it. As soon as the leaves came out, the blossoms appeared and the grapes ripened. I was holding the king's cup, so I took the grapes and squeezed them into the cup and gave it to him." Joseph said, "This is what it means. The three branches are 3 days. In 3 days, the king will release you, pardon you, and restore you to your position. You will give him his cup, and you did as you did before when you were his wine steward. But please remember me when everything is going well for you. And please be kind enough to mention me to the king and help me to get out of this prison. After all, I was kidnapped from the land of Hebrews, and even here in Egypt, I didn't do anything to deserve being put in prison." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation of the wine steward's dream was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too. I was carrying three bread baskets on my head. In the top basket, there were all kinds of pastries for the king, and the birds were eating them." Joseph answered, "This is what it means. The three baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, the king will release you and have your head cut off. Then he will hang your body on a pole, and the birds will eat your flesh." On his birthday, 3 days later, the king gave a banquet for all his officials. He released his wine steward and his chief baker and brought them before his officials. He restored the wine steward to his former position, but he executed the chief baker. It all happened just as Joseph had said. But the wine steward never gave Joseph another thought. He forgot all about him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Thank you for joining today's live session. We'll catch up tomorrow. Have a good day. God bless.